Hello, my name is Charlie Nicklin. This is video 3 in our 5-part series on achieving professional registration. You can see a full breakdown of the content of each video at the start of video 1, along with an overview of the whole process. In this video, I'll cover the competency statement and what's expected, with a few examples to help you. So how do you actually complete a competency statement? Well, let's take a look. If you're applying for registration as a professional engineer, you will receive the various forms and guidance notes from our membership secretary. Don't get overwhelmed by what we initially send. We just want to ensure that you have everything you need before you start the process. Once we have either accepted your qualifications or assessed your knowledge and learning, as described in the second video, the next part of the application is the competency statement. This is the most important document, as this is what our assessors will use to determine if you are at an acceptable level of competence to become a registered engineer. You've heard me mention UK Spec. The competency requirements for the different registration levels are laid down in this document, so it's worth familiarising yourself with its content. It is a useful document and explains all about professional registration. The template we send you, shown behind me, has some useful information on the first page, and then it goes into the detailed competencies. I'll just run through a couple of examples. If we take a look at competency B for an engineering technician, this competency is all about design, development and solving engineering problems. If we just look at attribute number 1, highlighted behind me, what we're asking you to do is demonstrate that you can identify problems and apply appropriate methods to identify causes and achieve satisfactory solutions. In UK Spec, you will see some examples of evidence next to the competency requirements shown in the right-hand column. Let's say you've been asked to diagnose a technical fault on a hydraulic system. It could be a tractor, a pedestrian mower, static processing plant in a factory, it doesn't matter. First of all, are you actually trained to do that work on that type of equipment? Do you have the technical documentation with you to understand what you're doing? You need to understand the problem being encountered by the operator. Before you work on it, you need to ensure the machine is safe and isolated. You then follow a methodical diagnosis process utilising relevant technical information. You'd perhaps have to use some test equipment, which you of course would need to understand how to use. You then go on to interpret test results to help you diagnose and then rectify the issue. Once you've resolved it, you need to test the system and ensure it's safe to leave. Whilst doing this, you will need to communicate with all concerned. These types of activities show that you understand what you're doing and how you apply your engineering knowledge as a competent engineering technician. Think about the types of work projects you're involved with and provide us with examples of what you do and how you do it and how it meets the requirements of the competency in question. There is no hard or fast rule about how much you write. What's important is that it's clear and concise and you explain what you've done and how you approached it and how you meet the criteria of UK Spec. If you aim for about 200 to 300 words for each attribute, that should be enough. Please feel free to support your application with materials such as photographs, reports and drawings. Also worth mentioning is that in the top box of the text box there is a number that refers to the page number of UK Spec for that competency, so you can quickly refer back to. Now let's take a look at the same competency and apply it to an incorporated engineer. The competence is still about design, development, solving engineering problems, but you'll notice the descriptions are very different to that of an Eng Tech. For an iEng, this competency is all about the person's ability to apply appropriate theoretical and practical methods to design, develop and solve engineering problems, whether it's a product, a system or a service. It uses phrases like applying theoretical methods and making significant contributions to designs and processes. It's a much higher level of competence. So looking at attribute number 1 again, it asks you to demonstrate you can identify, review and select techniques and procedures and methods to undertake engineering tasks. Let's say you've been asked to carry out some validation work on a machine frame. It may be a farm implement, a piece of static plant, or a robotic fruit picker. It doesn't matter. First of all, you need to understand what the requirements are. For example, the target life. You need to understand and interpret load inputs from data, calculations and simulations. A validation and sign-off plan is required. How are you going to test it? With a rig test, structural measurement, using strain gauges or computer simulation? You need to plan for potential failure modes so you can understand and plan safe systems of work. Once you've done the testing, you need to report conclusions and recommend improvements. Again, these types of activities show that you are logically working through a process as a competent engineer, understanding what's going on and utilising your practical and theoretical knowledge of design, development and problem solving. Now let's take a look at the same competency and apply it to a chartered engineer registration. The competence is still about design, development and solving engineering problems, but you'll notice the descriptions are different again to that of an incorporated engineer. For a CEng, this competency is all about the person's ability to define requirements, research solutions and emerging technologies, analysing technical risk, evaluating solutions, to name a few. Again, it's an increased level of competence. So looking at attribute number 1, it asks you to demonstrate how you have taken an active role in the identification and definition of project requirements, problems and opportunities. Let's say you're a project engineer working for a heating and ventilation consultancy and you're involved in a new livestock housing research project. You've been asked to look at automatic ventilation systems. So how does a chartered engineer approach this? You'd maybe start with the design standards and regulations you need to be working with. What are the inputs and outputs of the system? As a specialist, you may be competent in thermodynamics and computational fluid dynamics, so you'll be able to model what's going on in the system and provide predictions. You may have control system skills and be able to develop complex algorithms to provide the necessary ventilation performance. What's the latest technology, or have you come up with something new? You will have analysed failure modes and their effects to ensure you have a safe system. Have you created something that's economically viable? A chartered engineer will have a wide-ranging knowledge and will not only be focused on the immediate task, but will think of external factors surrounding it. These are all things a chartered engineer would do. You need to look at your own role and pull out examples of your work and how you meet the criteria in the UK spec document. Don't be afraid to use drawings, pictures, reports and data to explain your work. So as you can see, Competence B1, although it has the same initial title for the 3 registration levels, the actual competence requirements are all very different. One common question we get asked is for Competence E. This is about personal and professional commitment. Attribute number 3 is exactly the same for incorporated and chartered engineers, but the evidence required does differ to that of an Eng Tech. In reality, IEng and CEng registrants will be of graduate level and are likely to be working in higher level roles, researching, analysing and developing technical solutions. An engineering technician is more likely to be in a practical role, applying proven techniques to diagnose and resolve problems and carrying out test work. Because of the types of roles people at different registration levels will be in, the examples of evidence will be very different. For Eng Tech, it's more about recognising how sustainability principles are applied to your job and how they can be improved. An example could be a practical one, such as containment and disposal of liquids from maintenance work, or it could be a process one where during the course of your role you come up with a solution that can save energy or materials with a positive impact on the environment. For a chartered or incorporated engineer, it's likely to be much more high level and might be you that's shaping significant environmental improvements. You might be working in the water industry, involved in agricultural waste projects, with your work having a direct impact on sustainable solutions. You may be developing a new generation of machines using methane or hydrogen, again having a huge impact on the environment going forwards. These days, there should be lots of examples to choose from as sustainability runs through all of our lives. Okay, so from these examples, I hope you now understand what we're looking for in a competency statement. It's really useful to have someone read it for you after completion, not only to check for errors, but to feedback on the content. As I've said previously, mentors are great for this type of activity. For those of you going for iEng or CEng, what you put in your competency statement, along with your CV, will be the focus of the professional review interview. So now you have a good idea on how to complete a competency statement to become a registered engineer. If you have any questions, then get in touch with us at membership@iagree.org or give us a call on 01234 750 876. Thank you. Bye-bye.